Hello and welcome to another episode of The New Frontier. I'm very excited to keep the theme of ex-Amazonians. We've had so many ex-Amazonians on recently, but this one is a very special guest. We are joined by Marcelo Caudabusi, and my pronunciation of that is probably wrong, but he is an entrepreneur, a technologist, an innovator, and an author of the PRFAQ framework. He's got over 25 years of experience in the tech industry. Not only did he work at Amazon, but he also held key roles at Microsoft and founded startups in both Seattle and London. So Marcelo, hello, how are you?
I am good. Thank you for having me, Max.
Thank you for coming. This is a really cool topic because in my mind, Amazon, we speak a bit about Amazon's culture on this podcast on we've had a number of ex-executives come on. Many of the people listening are related to Amazon in some way, either selling on it or an agency owner or a SaaS provider or some people who work there as well, I know, listen. So one of Amazon's secret successes that I think not many people know about is its culture, and specifically its writing culture. And I think the PRFAQ is a key part of that. So do you want to maybe just define what a PRFAQ is for most people who would never have heard of this?
Sure. And you're right. I think one of the biggest assets that Amazon has for its innovation engine is its writing and reading culture, right? It's not only writing, people do read what it's written. And the PRFAQ is one of the frameworks that I learned when I joined Amazon a few years ago. It's about innovation and it stands for press release and frequently asked questions. And it's a way for teams to discover, debate, and decide about which projects they should, invest on and fund it. And it's used widely across Amazon. Like all teams use it, like HR and sales and marketing and product and engineering, like everyone uses this framework. And it's very powerful. And it's basically like 6-page document. The first page is the press release that paints a vision of the future, even though you haven't built anything yet, you haven't done anything yet, but it sets the tone, right? For like, hey, this is what we're trying to achieve a year from now, 6 months from now, whenever. And I really like the framework. I fell in love with it when I joined Amazon. Hence, I decided to write a book about it.
Fair enough. And for me, when I was there, it felt, Amazon always talks about working backwards, right? That's one of the key principles. Yes. Is we start with the customer and we work backwards. And to me, the PRFAQ framework was literally the scaffolding of how you actually do that, because it's very easy to say, oh, let's start with the customer, work backwards.
Yeah.
But what does that mean in reality? How do you actually kind of industrialize this across a company of 2 million people? And to me, the PRFAQ enables that. I don't know. Do you want to just riff on that a bit?
Yeah. So the PRFAQ is the blueprint for the working backwards, right? A lot of people say like, well, let's work backward from the customer. What does that mean? Like write the PRFAQ. That's what it means, right? At Amazon, that's what it means. And I felt that like more people should be using it to go through this process, this method that I call, so that they can have the same benefits, right? So what you're doing is you're painting this vision of the future in the voice of the customer, right? Not necessarily in the voice of the customer, but like from the perspective of the customer. That's what I meant to say, right? Like, what is the value? Why customers care about this? What they're gonna get out of this if this is like successful, right? So you start from there and then you work backwards to define the strategy to get there, right? It's not the features, it's not the plan, it's not the roadmap, it's a strategy. So it's a very high level document, right? Like you're not gonna see functional specification or requirements in a PRFAQ.
And I mean, it's an amazing invention by Jeff Bezos. And as you say, just to kind of repeat that back for the listener, you start with basically the public release launch announcement. So this is Amazon have just launched drones across the UK, and you literally write it as if you're announcing this launch that you haven't done anything yet to the world. And then that's kind of, as you say, you talk about how the customer reacts to that, and you'd make up some quotes. Often you'd kind of make up these fun customer quotes to say, James blog says it's amazing that my milk can come in 1 hour from the drone, and this kind of stuff, right? And you kind of start from that end point in mind, and then as you say, you kind of, the strategy is working backwards in the FAQs from that. Is that a fair that's a fair memory of how it works?
100%. You're exactly right, right? The one thing that is important to say is when people say press release, they think marketing. But the press release in a PRFAQ is not marketing, is like a strategy decision tool, right? So you're writing just for yourself and your team. You're not writing to send to the press or send to bloggers or influencers, none of that, right? So you're just trying to paint a vision and then work with the team. You know, the biggest value on the PRFAQ for me is not the document, is the debates that occur around the document, right? With all different functions, all different roles in the organization, the team that's going to build it. So people can look from different angles and say, like, how can we make this work, right? How can we make this better? What are we missing here? So it's a process that takes a little bit of time, not a lot, but it saves a lot of time later on, right? Because you're going to avoid so many mistakes and so many misfires.
Agree. I think that's one of the key goals of this is to align leadership on the vision. Because if everyone doesn't, if everyone's sitting around, all these different people don't agree on like what that final vision state is in the press release, then you're going to be firing in all sorts of directions. Do you have an example of a famous Amazon feature? I'm not going to ask you about your specific ones, but maybe like one that Jeff Bezos or Andy Jassy has talked about, which came from a PRFAQ.
Yeah, I think some of the most famous products at Amazon, including Alexa, AWS, Kindle, Amazon Music, all started with a single document, right? It was a PRFAQ that was written talking about the vision and what they want to achieve. And Amazon uses PRFAQ at different levels. Like it can be a whole new business, like a multi-billion-dollar business is going to have its own PRFAQ, its own 6-page document. It could be, a product within a line of business. It could be a feature even, right? As small as a feature. If it has a big impact, we probably should discuss it. So that's when you bring the PRFAQ framework to make sure that people are involved and aligned. And what you said is very important as well, Max, because, it's not that people are misaligned after they decide on something. They assumed they are aligned, which is even worse, right? It's not like they say, like, I don't know what we're doing. It's more like, oh, I have an idea what we're doing. So in most companies where they use presentations and PowerPoint and slides, everyone is making a bunch of assumptions about things. And then when they start executing an idea, they realize, wait a second, we're not on the same page about this. I thought we were doing X and the other person thought they were doing Y. And the PRFAQ avoids a lot of those issues.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get, I've seen in action the importance of this. And obviously I wasn't there for the Alexa and the, some of the other Prime membership PRFAQs you mentioned, but I've seen some on a smaller scale for sure. And as you say, the importance is in a company like Amazon, taking Alexa, you have people in the hardware division, you have people in the AI division, you have people in the marketing, you have all sorts of different stakeholders who need to align on a single vision. And therefore it's a very useful exercise to get everyone on the same page about where multiple stakeholders are going. But I wonder, many of the listeners here will not be at a company of the size of Amazon. They won't have that many stakeholders. So, in a startup, like, do you feel this is still a useful framework to use in a startup environment?
So that's the reason I wrote the book, right? So I've been doing startups for a long time, more than 18 years. And when I joined Amazon and I was exposed to PRFAQ, I was like, wow, this could be really valuable for startups. Because one of the big problems that startups have is this lack of clarity of like where they are going. Like startups, sometimes it's just like build, do, which I think it's important. Right? You don't have a product if you don't execute, if you don't make it happen, and if you don't sell to your customers. But what the PRFAQ does is help this very, very early stage, what I call like before day zero, right? For you, before day one, for you to make sure that like you are going to invest the next few years of your life in the right idea. And the PRFAQ is not so much a persuasion tool, like it's not going to tell you what to do, is a feedback seeking tool, like I mentioned, right? So you're going to talk with advisors, your co-founder, people on your team, and like try to figure out, is this the right thing for us to do? Right. So I felt that was very valuable for startups. And personally, I have used the PRFAQ for my own book. So I wrote a PRFAQ about the book. Is the book worth it? And it was interesting because in the process of writing this PRFAQ, I started thinking about like, who's the customer? What problem are they trying to solve? How I'm going to reach them, which are things that I haven't thought about before. Like I didn't think about a book as a product, but when I put in the context of a PRFAQ, yeah, it's a product. It has a market, right? So it helped me really think through all those nuances and hopefully write a better book.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a big fan of PRFAQs, hence wanted to have this conversation on our podcast. But just to play devil's advocate, maybe the listeners thinking this in a startup environment, often it is so messy and scrappy that, let's say we wrote a PRFAQ in 2022 and me and my co-founder started this business, it would look, there would be material differences to where we are today. And many of this is due to external factors. The world and AI has moved so much. This both on like how customers are using AI, but also the quality of models that are available. Some things aren't available that we assumed would be available in 3 years. I'm thinking about, we're thinking that image models would take 6 months to get to like excellent, and we're still not quite there. And for whatever reason, like Stable Diffusion, one of the biggest ones, kind of they didn't quite go bankrupt, but they when it got into some trouble and blah, blah, like there's in a startup, like you're so impacted by customer feedback and also by the industry and external things. So like how like it's slightly different from being at Amazon, where you can say we're going to launch Alexa and like you've got the money in the bank, you've got if you've got the will, you can make it happen. So what would you say to people who would put that case to you?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good question, right? So vision, if you have a vision based on a real customer problem, it shouldn't change that often. So if you look back to how you started your company, you're probably going to say, well, we have the same North Star. Like you haven't changed the vision as much.
Right.
Maybe you did, right? Maybe
we have the same North Star. We've always wanted to help.
Exactly. So that press release you would have written like 2 years ago would still be valid, right? Because it's based on the vision. The other thing is the whole FAQ section of the PRFAQ. It's about strategy, not about tactics. So you're talking about the importance of certain things, what customers are going to value, about the viability of this business, about the feasibility. So if you write features down, then yes, you're going to have to change everything, right? But as long as the North Star and the strategy are the same, you probably don't need to change much. But the lifetime of a PRFAQ is really like 6 to 12 months, right? It's not going to be a 3-year document. It's not going to be a 2-week document. So you're writing something just to find alignment. And I guarantee you that you and your co-founder probably had a lot of conversations, right? So you did the back and forth on vision and strategy and all kinds of things, also on the features, right? But you didn't capture it on a PRFAQ, which you could have, and probably wouldn't have changed that much.
Yeah, well, we certainly did, we copy a lot of things from Amazon, as it sounds like you did. Yeah. I mean, maybe do you want to give an example, maybe from what you see as your most successful startup, of how you use this PRFAQ and what the impact was?
Well, so I learned PRFAQs after I did most of my startups.
Oh, no. Okay, fair enough.
So, and that's what like told me like, hey, this is really interesting, because one of the big problems with new startups, I founded 6 startups, right? Is like you and your co-founder, or you alone, or you and 2 other co-founders, like you spend like months like on this back and forth. Should we do this? Should we do that? And then like 6 months later, you realize, wait, we never talk about this specific aspect, right? So I think the PRFAQ is a forcing function for conversation. Right? It paints a picture of like, hey, if you want to have a business, this is all the stuff that you need to think about. Not everything, but like from a strategy and vision perspective. And like, let's talk about this, and like, let's write it down. so that we can start executing fast, right? I think that's one of the benefits of Amazon. Like Jeff Bezos calls, like slow down so you can move fast later.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, do you see PRFAQs as only useful for products, or do you see any? I mean, you mentioned that you use it for a book. Do you see any other uses that people could have this framework for?
Yeah, I think there is a broad spectrum of things that you can use the PRFAQ, right? I think they are very valuable and critical for new businesses and new products. New products meaning within an organization that already exists. But they can also be used for improvements of process, policies, services, even personal projects. Right. So if you're going to launch a podcast, you could write a PRFAQ about the podcast, right? And so, like, who's my listener? What problem I'm trying to solve them? Like, how I'm gonna, make this unique in the market so that my podcast is delivering value to the customer. So you could use this for personal project as well. And I heard even people writing PRFAQ for their own career, talking about like 10 years from now, I'm going to be on this position, announcing a promotion, yada, yada, so people can use for multiple purposes.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually quite interesting because I recently spoke to quite a successful founder. I want to say someone who's built a company which is like plus 300 employees, and I'm not sure quite what the revenue is, but hundreds of millions, if not, kind of revenue I'd estimate. And his like one piece of advice to me was not the PRFAQ, obviously, but similar. He was like, what he wished he did was to sit there and like map out where he wants to be in 5 years, actually write it down. Like, this is what I want to have achieved in terms of the business, in terms of my personal life, in terms of everything. And he said what surprised him most is how often when he did it, that it came true. He could sit there 5 years, he'd write it, and then it would manifest into being, because I guess at least he kind of knows where he's going then. And so, yeah, that's very interesting that people using it in their personal and kind of broader lives. And I think that rings true.
That's right. And one of the important things that I like to mention about the PRFAQ is that because it's a writing exercise, it helps you think and it helps you get clarity. As you write, like you realize, oh, I don't know this thing really well, so I need to do more research. I need to go find the information, and then I come back and I write. So at the end of the process, even if you don't share a document with anyone, like what you wrote is going to help you understand what you're doing, the problem you're solving, where you're going, and also help you articulate better, right? When you write something and you talk to someone else about it, you're much better at articulating your idea.
Yeah, the power of writing stuff down, 100%, and then you can probably inspire more people to invest in your startup or get behind your idea internally, whatever you're wanting to do. We are the AI for e-commerce podcast, so we always have to ask every guest about AI. I saw you wrote a blog about kind of how the PRFAQ survives and evolves in the world of LLMs and AI. Do you want to just kind of talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is like three main use cases for AI in the context of writing and coding and creating, right? So the first use case is like helping you research, plan, think through, some of the high level things, search the internet. That's a very common. The middle one is actually doing the work, doing the writing, doing the coding, doing the drawing, whatever it might be. And the last one is the critiquing, right? Like provide feedback, correct, help me finish, polish, all that kind of stuff. I think for number one, research, planning, and number three, critiquing and providing feedback and helping you refine editing, AI is fantastic. Like use it 100% of the time, right? Like there is no better tool today to do that kind of work. The problem is in the middle part, right? Because I think if AI is doing the writing for you, if AI is doing the designing for you, AI is doing the thinking, right? And part of the writing process is you thinking through all the options, thinking about the strategy, thinking about the choices that you're going to make. And I don't think it's a great idea to use AI. So use cautiously here. in their writing. There is some type of writing or even coding or design that is very tactical, meaning like you want to try different things, you want to do fast, you want to do it quickly. That is worth doing. But when it's strategy, like when you need to think about through many choices, you better do it yourself than asking AI to do it. So tactical examples of writing, including writing your resume. Like writing a resume is not a very creative, process. It's a very mechanical thing. Let AI rip at this, right? Like they're going to do a much better job than you would at this. Now, the real value of the PRFAQ is that AI loves context. So let's say you're running a marketing campaign and you need to create 10 blog posts about your new startup. If you provide the PRFAQ as part of the context for the LLM, it's going to do much better job at creating those 10 blog posts for you. That's going to be way more aligned with the vision and strategy that you were thinking about. So I think PRFAQs have a very bright future in the world of AI.
Yeah, I was actually thinking this. Again, it's not like the traditional Amazon PRFAQ where you're like outlining the vision as if you launched a product and then dealing with the like top questions that launch may have. But there's definitely something in there about best practices for prompting, because in your, as you say, in your prompt, what you want to give them as much context as possible. You kind of want to outline what you want the end result to be, and also having FAQ style questions or just like follow-up things is helpful to get AI to give you a much better answer. And often, as I've seen over the years, people say to, oh, my friends or my fiance will say, oh, AI isn't very good, I asked it this and it didn't work. It's like, well, I bet the prompt was terrible. Like, I'm sure if you actually gave it a good prompt, it would actually be fantastic. And you didn't give a lot of context or really outline what you were thinking. You put in a sentence or two and expected magic, and there wasn't any. And then you're saying it doesn't work. So I see that. Definitely a kind of evolution of the PRFAQ in terms of prompt engineering for sure. So I guess Marcelo, like, I don't know if you have any other kind of leaving like final thoughts you want to leave people with on PRFAQ, or anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask about this that you want to discuss.
Well, the only thing I want to say is like check out the book.
That was my next one. That's my next question.
I have a lot of content and articles that I wrote on the website, and I publish a newsletter that help people understand how to write a PRFAQ, how to think through, how to write clearly as well, so you can get that clarity on your idea and project. So it's all online, all free for anyone that wants to explore that.
Amazing. And where would you like? We'll link the links you shared with me before below when we publish it. But like where do you like to connect with people? Where should they reach out to you?
Yeah, the easiest way is people can go to Google and search for the PRFAQ book. And I'm going to be #1 result there. And from there, you can find all the resources, including where to buy the book.
Amazing. Well, we would encourage people to buy the book. I think it's a fascinating topic. Hopefully this has whet the appetite to certainly adopt some of Amazon's best practices in your own businesses. So Marcelo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Max.